We said something happened these last 3 weeks, and I think we all understand. The Ravens have played some pretty good teams over the last 3 weeks with New Orleans. I think Carolina is, I'm inclined to think they're better than some people thought. Certainly Cam Newton's played at a high level through the first half of the season. And then Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. They've righted the ship, certainly. But he made a point in saying that offenses are playing them differently, and they're not, whereas early in the season, teams were playing, quote, actual football. And you know why that really resonated with me is it speaks to how, as I've written and we've talked about it, and I've complained about how the Ravens have continued to try to invest resources into their defense year after year after year, and yet their defense has come up small in some of the biggest moments of the last 4 to 5 years. That's the NFL now. The best offenses are so innovative and so creative, and they have playmakers, and they use misdirection. And in the case of a Carolina or a Deshaun Watson in Houston, they have mobile quarterbacks who are dual threats. And it's really tough to play defense. And I'm empathetic of Brandon Williams feeling that way, but that's also part of the reason why I've been miffed why the Ravens have tried to build their roster in that way when it's clear that the NFL has changed. And that's not to defend Joe Flacco, because Joe Flacco hasn't been very good, and certainly he was not good on Sunday. And this is more of a big picture kind of way of looking at how the Ravens have been built, and it kind of goes back to it all feeling stale. And for Brandon Williams to make that comment that the last few weeks they're facing teams that aren't really playing, quote, actual football, well, that sounds like making excuses, and that sounds like, to me, a team that feels a little outdated in how they approach it. And look, to be very clear, I didn't expect the Ravens to shut out or shut down the New Orleans Saints. I didn't expect them to completely shut down the Carolina Panthers. I didn't expect them to shut down the Pittsburgh Steelers, but this has been and I'm not alone in this, lots of people have said this, so I don't want to say that I'm taking credit for it, but this is why people have talked about the fact that the old adage of defense wins championships and trying to recreate the 2000 Ravens, guess what? The NFL that's not how games are won in the NFL consistently anymore. And that's not to say that you shouldn't try to have a good defense. And statistically speaking, the Ravens do have a good defense. Now, it's been really bad the last couple of weeks, but guess what? Most good defenses in this day and age, in this NFL, going up against the elite offenses, guess what? The elite offenses beat the elite, quote, elite defenses almost every time. And that's just, the league is becoming that more and more.
It's kind of like baseball in the late 90s when they were all juiced. The hitters were beating the pitchers routinely. Now, all of a sudden, the pendulum has swung again, and the pitchers beat the hitters routinely, right?
Right. So, I mean,
it's adjustments, again, right? And it's also the rules that favor offense, just in general, right?
Sure. And I want to be very clear. I'm using Brandon Williams' quote as kind of a big picture statement on the state of this franchise and where they've been the last 3 or 4 years and where they're going. And I recognize that they put more effort into their offense this year. And who knows what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson? And who knows? We might be seeing Lamar Jackson playing more as we get deeper into the season and this thing isn't getting turned around. So maybe the Ravens are on their way to doing that, but where it is right now, what do you really point to say that they do particularly well? Their defense can't get off the field on third down all of a sudden. They've been vulnerable over the middle of the field, and that's been a theme for a few years now. Their offense started out well. The last few weeks, it feels very familiar, doesn't it? And now you throw into the fact that they haven't been able to run the ball this year. So they haven't passed the ball particularly well since the start of October, and they haven't run the ball well all year. And take it a step further, the special teams, they've been very mediocre in that department.
Or unspecial, as we would say, yes.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, you just look at this entire picture from John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco and Wink Martindale and Marty Morningwig and Eric Weddle, Terrell Suggs, name all the veterans on this team on down to the rookies on the roster. And I just look at very little of it feels like it's good enough. And, you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions, and I think it even came up before the game on Sunday. And you made a comment that it's a problem when your kicker continues to be your best player, and kind of feels that way again. Extra point a couple weeks ago notwithstanding. But it does speak to where the Ravens are right now. There's nothing you really point to, even though the defense statistically will still look very good even after this game. Very little you can hang your hat on to say, I feel really good about that area of this football team. And when that's the case, it is going to fall back on the head coach. And frankly, it should fall back on the front office. And we know there's going to be change there just with Ozzie Newsome retiring and Eric DeCosta taking over. So it just feels very stale. 4-5 is all too familiar territory. And it's once again that prevailing feeling that this Ravens team is just not good enough anymore.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and Luke at WNST.net. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory. If you were at the Ravens game, you saw the little trivia. I was 3 for 3 on the Strategic Factory trivia, by the way. Marketing, printing, promotional goods of all kinds, all in one shop in Owings Mills. They are our friends and sponsors. If you need signage, printing, branded material, logo designs, giveaways for a trade show, stuff like this on our Facebook Live and our YouTube WNSTV channel. You can call them at 443-738-9830 or find them at strategicfactory.com. Buffalo Wild Wings up in Bel Air, they got the $5 menu on game day, so even when the Ravens don't play so well, there aren't any complaints on the food or the beverages there for sure. See them and see us. We're going to be doing an event up there sometime soon, maybe around a Terps basketball game. I'm not sure, maybe a Caps game, but they're up there with you, and they're watching the game, and they're licking their purple wounds as well at Buffalo Wild Wings. My pal Joe, make sure you stop by and see him, get some wings up there, and call today and learn about the Eat Wings, raise funds for your local sports teams or organization. They do a great job up there at the festival in Bel Air. Buffalo Wild Wings. Also, our newest sponsor, LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute at Owings Mills. Going to have Dr. Kevin Crutchfield on this week talking concussion and stuff. And we also saw Jimmy Smith run off at the end of the game, as well as Dr. Craig Bennett on the orthopedic side. He might be fixing my elbow before it's all over with. The new game plan for sports-related injuries, back with the surgeons and the doctors who treat the pro athletes. You need LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. Cal Ripken looks good on those billboards. We're going to be educating you about all the cool stuff that they're doing at Foundry Row right out there in Owings Mills. Luke Jones joins us now to continue to discuss the aftermath of this. You know, Luke, one of the things that I'm most disappointed about, and this really does speak to Joe Flacco and the offense, and Joe looked like a beaten guy at the end of the game, and this whole Wildcat and what they're doing with Lamar Jackson and lining guys up and the tackles and everything that's going on here. There was a pace, there was a tempo, there was a crispness, there was an electricity about this offense in September that now in November we're not seeing it. I mean, running game notwithstanding, even the Cincinnati game that they got themselves back into with the offense on the road to some degree, it felt like at some point they could be explosive, they could make plays, and I know they were down 10 points with whatever it was, 6 minutes left to go in the game on Sunday, and I turned to you and said, I think the game will go overtime because I think their offense can punch back because it has punched back. It just hasn't punched back lately. I don't know if I believe that anymore at 4-5. I'm not buying them as a good football team at 4-5. I don't think I can sell that right now, Luke.
Yeah, and I think you look at this offense. I mean, you said it. They haven't been able to run the ball all year, and that wasn't by design. And let's be very clear. When we all looked at that team last year going into the season, it was very clear what they wanted.